They pull you in with compliments, then twist the knife with silence. They bait you with affection, then disappear when you reach for more. Emotional games. Subtle, seductive, and infuriating. Whether in romantic relationships, social circles, or even the workplace, these tactics can shake the foundation of your peace if you let them. But here's the truth. You don't have to play. Welcome to the Everlasting Stoic, where we sharpen the mind and forge the soul through timeless Stoic wisdom. If you're tired of getting caught in emotional storms, and you're ready to stand with quiet power, unmoved, unshaken, this is your sanctuary. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and stay through to the end. Because this video is more than just advice. It's a philosophy that can change how you carry yourself in every relationship from this day forward. Now let's begin with the first step toward your unshakable self. 1. Recognize manipulation without reacting. There is a kind of war that doesn't involve weapons or fists. It's waged in texts that go unanswered, in words chosen to provoke, in silence that punishes, and smiles that disarm just before the trap is sprung. Emotional manipulation is a game designed to destabilize, but the Stoic does not play games. The Stoic observes, watches, learns, and remains still in the face of turbulence. Before we can outsmart emotional games, we must first see them for what they are. Invitations to chaos. Manipulators thrive on your reaction. The sigh, the accusation, the desperate text, the emotional outburst. Each is a currency they collect. A piece of your power you've handed over. The moment you react with heat, they've won. Because emotional manipulators are not after your understanding. They're after your control. You may have encountered it. A partner who withholds affection after a disagreement. A friend who guilt trips you into submission. A colleague who praises you publicly, only to undermine you privately. These tactics may seem random, but they're often calculated, designed to create confusion, dependency, or doubt. But how does the Stoic respond? He doesn't. Not immediately, not emotionally, not irrationally. He sees the game and refuses to join the board. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means being anchored in clarity. When you operate from a place of inner stillness, manipulation becomes obvious. You begin to see patterns. The hot and cold affection, the passive-aggressive remarks, the situations engineered to make you doubt your worth. When you are reactive, you are predictable. When you are predictable, you are controllable. The Stoic remains unpredictable, not out of strategy but out of discipline. He pauses, assesses, and acts when action is aligned with reason, not emotion. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You cannot control the tactics others choose, but you can control how much space they're allowed to occupy in your thoughts. Here is where emotional detachment comes into play, not as a cold wall, but as a sacred boundary. Emotional detachment is not the absence of care. It's the presence of perspective. When you're anchored in your values, someone else's attempt to rattle your ego becomes background noise. Recognizing manipulation without reacting is the first true test of your inner strength. It's easy to recognize when someone is playing games. It's harder to resist the bait, but the Stoic knows. Responding to provocation with silence is often the loudest response of all. The next time someone sends a cryptic message designed to make you chase, don't respond immediately. Observe your own impulse. That's where your work begins. That's where transformation begins. Let them play chess. You're not on the board. You're above it. Now let's make this practical. The next time you feel that urge, the itch to defend yourself, explain yourself, prove your worth, pause, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is this conversation even necessary? Or am I just being lured into emotional labor that serves someone else's ego? And if the answer is the latter, walk away. Not in anger, not in drama, but in mastery. Because the one who doesn't react holds the ultimate power. Let's take a moment here. What's one emotional game you've recognized recently? Something subtle, something manipulative. Drop it in the comments, call it out, not to dwell on it, but to gain clarity. Naming it is how we disarm it. Or if you're ready to commit to a higher standard, comment this below. I do not play games. I stand in truth. Let's move forward. 2. Stop seeking external validation. The need to be seen. The hunger to be acknowledged. The ache that asks, silently, am I enough? This is the soft underbelly most manipulators aim for. Not your logic, not your strength, but your craving for validation. It begins innocently. We want to be appreciated. We want to feel attractive, respected, wanted. But the moment our worth becomes dependent on how others respond to us, we begin to betray ourselves. The Stoics taught that our value is not up for auction. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That isn't a call to mediocrity. It's a call to freedom. The freedom to walk through the world without adjusting yourself to win applause. When you chase validation, you become vulnerable to manipulation. A person who knows this can pull your strings easily. 1 minute they shower you with compliments. The next, they go quiet. You spiral wondering what changed. You start performing, adjusting, bending, overthinking, just to get back that fleeting sense of approval. But here's the hard truth. What can be given can be taken away, and any identity built on external approval is as fragile as the next compliment or the next silence. So what's the Stoic alternative? It's to build a fortress within. You must know your value without hearing it. You must respect yourself in the absence of applause. You must carry the quiet dignity of a man or woman who walks tall, even when no one's watching. This doesn't mean being arrogant. It means being grounded. It means measuring yourself, not by what others think of you, but by what you think of yourself and how aligned your life is with your principles. Ask yourself, do I act differently depending on who is watching? Do I feel incomplete when I'm not being praised? Do I doubt myself the moment someone pulls away? These aren't weaknesses to be ashamed of. They are signs, pointers, and you can reclaim yourself starting now. Every time you seek validation, you're handing someone else the keys to your peace. Take them back. Live with integrity, not performance. Speak the truth, not what gets likes. Choose alignment over applause. And most importantly, affirm yourself in the quiet, when there is no one there to reassure you, because that is where your real power begins. Let me ask you something deeper. What's one moment in your life when you felt truly whole without needing anyone's approval? Go back there. Feel it. And if you're willing, share that moment in the comments below. Not to impress anyone, but to remind yourself of who you were before the world told you to seek permission to be proud. Or leave this affirmation. I am not here to be seen. I am here to be real. Let's keep going. 3. Guard your mental energy. Your mind is your sanctuary. And yet, many live as if it were a marketplace, open all day, vulnerable to noise, opinions, and every passing emotional merchant who walks by trying to sell them insecurity, anger, or confusion. But the Stoic mind is not a market. It is a fortress, and its gates do not swing open for just anyone. We live in a time where attention is currency, and emotional energy is constantly drained by those who thrive on conflict, drama, and attention games. That person who texts only when they want something. The one who plants a seed of doubt just to see how it grows. The one who drops emotional grenades and disappears. It's not just about recognizing manipulation. It's about guarding your mental bandwidth from those who drain it, bit by bit, until you're left distracted, depleted, and confused. Ask yourself, how many of your thoughts today were truly yours? How much of your emotional state is being shaped by someone else's inconsistency? When you let every comment, every silence, every mood swing dictate how you feel, you become exhausted. Your focus dissolves. Your purpose fades. You forget who you are. Not because you're weak, but because your inner world has been infiltrated. The Stoics taught that peace isn't passive. It's guarded. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Because it's not the actions of others that drain us. It's the endless mental reruns we play of their behavior. You cannot stop someone from playing games, but you can decide how long you will think about it. One of the most powerful things you can do is develop a mental gatekeeper, an inner voice that asks, before every reaction, is this worth my energy? Not every message needs a response. Not every silence deserves interpretation. Not every comment deserves analysis. Guarding your energy doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming wise. It means learning to choose your emotional investments, rather than giving them away like loose change. This applies even to people you care about, especially them. Just because someone holds a place in your heart doesn't mean they've earned unlimited access to your mind. The Stoic doesn't withdraw from the world, but he filters it. He sets boundaries not out of cruelty, but out of respect for himself and for the clarity of his own mission. Imagine waking up tomorrow with complete control over your attention. No more mental spirals. No more obsessing over someone's tone. No more worrying what they meant by that message. Just stillness. Just focus. Just presence. That isn't a fantasy. That's what guarding your energy feels like. From this point forward, treat your mind like sacred ground. Protect its gates. Filter its visitors, and preserve its stillness. 4. Build confidence through independence. There is a myth that confidence is loud, that it arrives wearing a grin, shoulders squared, words slick with charm, but the Stoic knows better. Real confidence is not performance. It is independence. A silent, immovable knowing that you can stand alone and still be whole. Dependence is the enemy of power. It makes you fragile. It makes you compliant. It makes you easier to break, because it means someone else has your balance in their hands. And emotional games are built on one core assumption. You need them. Their attention, their approval, their presence. But when you build confidence through true independence, that illusion shatters. Let's be honest, many of us enter relationships with unhealed need. Not because we're weak, but because we've been taught to believe love should complete us, that validation from others should fill the void inside. We've been taught that loneliness is something to run from rather than something to master. And so we hand over pieces of our confidence in exchange for closeness. We begin to shape our behavior to maintain that connection. We tolerate inconsistencies. We rationalize red flags. We accept less than we deserve. Not because we don't know better, but because we're afraid of what we might be without them. That's the trap. That's why independence isn't just a life skill, it's a shield. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They would sleep on the floor, walk without a cloak, eat coarse food. Not because they were masochists, but because they were training themselves to be less afraid of lack, less afraid of law, less afraid of the temporary comforts that the world offers, because they knew those things could always be taken away. Can you sit in solitude without reaching for someone to validate your worth? Can you move through your day without checking for signs that someone is still thinking of you? Can you experience joy, peace, even pride without needing it to be witnessed? That's the test. And that's the work. To build confidence through independence is not to become emotionally numb or self-sufficient to the point of arrogance. It is to stop outsourcing your peace. It is to build a core so stable that relationships become complements, not crutches. Independence teaches you to choose, not cling. And choice is where confidence is born. It's in the morning you rise early, not because someone told you to, but because you've made a silent contract with yourself. It's in the workout you finish, not to post a picture of it, but because discipline is your language. It's in the evening you spend alone, not out of bitterness, but out of strength, because your presence is enough. This kind of confidence cannot be manipulated. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't collapse at the first sign of emotional withdrawal from someone else. And when you bring this version of yourself into relationships, you change the dynamic. You become magnetic, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you are hard to shake. This doesn't mean being unavailable. It means being unattached to need. It means knowing you can walk away and still be whole. It means the loss of someone else's affection doesn't equate to the loss of your self-worth. And in that space, that internal space of freedom, you move differently. You no longer engage in emotional chess games, because you don't need to win someone over to feel valuable. You're already rooted, already full, already standing tall. Confidence built on independence is the kind of power no one can take from you. It's forged in quiet hours, in doing the work when no one is watching, in becoming someone you respect, so that even in the silence of solitude, you hear no doubt. So build the life you love, not to impress, but to be free. Build the body you admire, not for others to comment, but for yourself to feel strong. Build the habits, the discipline, the vision, not to compete, but to create the self you promised yourself you'd become. Because once you become that person, everything changes. The games stop, the manipulation stops, the fear of losing people stops, and in its place is something unshakable: confidence, integrity, peace. Let's continue. 5. Pause before you engage. One of the most underrated forms of power is the ability to wait, to pause, to not respond even when your ego is on fire, to not retaliate even when your emotions scream for release, to not explain, prove, justify, or This is the quiet dominion of the Stoic. His ability to choose restraint over reactivity. We live in a culture of immediacy. Instant responses, instant validation, instant judgment. But the Stoic is not ruled by the clock. He is ruled by intention. When someone plays emotional games, ghosting, provoking, sending half-truths designed to trigger your need for clarity, your first instinct is to respond, to close the loop, to regain your footing. But here is your moment of power. Pause. Because in the pause you disrupt the cycle. The pause allows space for clarity. And clarity is what manipulators fear most. Because clarity cannot be controlled. Consider the following. Someone accuses you unfairly. Your instinct is to defend. Someone withdraws affection. Your instinct is to question. Someone flirts with someone else just to make you react. Your instinct is to retaliate. But in each of these situations, if you pause not out of fear but out of command, you reclaim the moment. Ask yourself, what do I gain by responding right now? Is it resolution? Or is it reassurance? Is it progress? Or is it performance? The pause isn't passive. It is strategic. It is a conscious delay, not a fearful retreat. It's the internal discipline to let the emotional dust settle before taking a step forward. The Stoics believed in the separation of impulse and action. You are not your first reaction. You are not your anger, your hurt, your pride. You are the observer, the one who sees the flame rise and decides fair to feed it or extinguish it. And this matters most in emotionally charged situations. When someone plays games with your emotions, your greatest weapon is non-reactivity. Let them expect the same old patterns, then break them. Let them wait for the storm, then give them stillness. Over time, this pause becomes second nature. You no longer rush to fix misunderstandings. You no longer crumble at perceived rejection. You no longer let the energy of another person determine You walk with calm, speak when necessary, withdraw when wise. And that unpredictability, the kind that comes from stillness, not manipulation, is what makes you powerful. The person who can pause can see. The person who can wait can choose. The person who can breathe before reacting is the one who leads. So start practicing it in small ways. Before you reply to the cryptic message, pause. Before you question the silence, pause. Before you defend your worth to someone who's testing your boundaries, pause. And in that pause, ask, am I responding from emotion or from mastery? Let that question become your compass. If you've ever caught yourself in a moment where you reacted too quickly, where you wished you had taken even a breath longer, share it in the comments. Not to shame yourself, but to mark your growth. Or write this affirmation below. I pause because I lead. I wait because I am in control. The game ends when you stop playing it. And the pause is your first step out of the cycle. Let's move deeper. 6. Use silence as strategy. There's a kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It doesn't defend itself at every accusation, or run to correct every misunderstanding. It simply remains still, rooted, calm, composed. That strength is silence. And when used with intention, silence is not passive. It is strategic. In the hands of the wise, silence becomes a blade. Let's be honest. Emotional games are built on reaction. Manipulators throw out bait, hoping you'll flinch, panic, or chase. They create tension and wait for you to break it. But what if you didn't? What if you let the silence stretch? What if you let their need for control collapse under its own weight? The Stoics knew the value of words. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But silence goes beyond that. It tuts an expression of power, especially when the other person expects a response. Consider this. When someone pulls back from you to see if you'll chase, what happens? When you don't. When they say something provocative to see if they can rile you up. What happens when your face stays still? When they ghost you to spark anxiety? What happens when you let them disappear into their own echo? What happens is that you become unpredictable, and unpredictable people cannot be controlled. Silence, when wielded by the reactive, looks like avoidance, but when wielded by the Stoic, It becomes command. It is the choice to remove yourself from needless conflict. It is the discipline to speak when it serves your principles, not your impulses. But this is not easy, because silence is uncomfortable when you're unsure of yourself. It leaves room for the mind to wander. It exposes your desire to fix, to clarify, to close loops. That's why many rush to fill silence. They can't bear the discomfort it brings. But that's where the growth lies. When you can sit in silence, you begin to see clearly which connections are built on real substance, and which ones only exist when you're constantly proving your worth. Strategic silence reveals who values you for who you are, and who only values you when you're playing their game. And silence doesn't just reveal others. It reveals you to yourself. In your quiet, unreactive moments, you'll find the fear that drives you. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of being replaced. The fear of losing something that perhaps you never truly had. Use that awareness, because silence is not just a weapon. It's also a mirror. When someone goes silent on you, the untrained mind fills in the gaps with insecurity. But the trained mind, the stoic mind, meets the gap with presence, observation, strength. This doesn't mean you play silent games in return. Stoicism is not about manipulation. It's about mastery. Your silence is not meant to punish it. It is meant to protect, to guard your dignity, to center your peace. There are moments when silence is the most powerful answer you can give. When someone speaks in disrespect, remain quiet. Not to avoid conflict, but to refuse the invitation into a lower frequency. When someone reaches out only when it benefits them, respond with nothing. That is the response. That is the boundary. And when you feel the pull to chase, to argue, to demand, remember this: silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence, when chosen, is sovereignty. The person who does not need to explain is feared. The person who does not need to win is respected. The person who can sit in silence without unraveling is free. So next time someone pulls you into an emotional game, remember, you don't owe anyone your noise. Let them sit in the echo of their own behavior. Let your silence become the space where your power expands. Because in a world of impulsive reaction, silence becomes your rebellion. And in a world of manipulation, silence becomes your strategy. Let's go deeper. 7. Find fulfillment within. This is the part most people avoid. They'll change their routines, their bodies, their relationships, their careers, but they won't face the emptiness inside. That hunger, that ache, that invisible gap that no praise, no affection, no success ever seems to fully close. It's the part that makes you keep checking your phone for a message that never comes. The part that makes silence feel like abandonment instead of peace. The part that says, maybe I'll feel whole when they finally love me the way I love them. But here's the brutal truth. If you are empty, no one can fill you. And if you are full, no one can drain you. Stoicism isn't just about discipline. It's about wholeness, self-sufficiency, a deep internal well of meaning that cannot be polluted by external neglect. The people who fall prey to emotional games are often not weak. They're often intelligent, successful, even outwardly confident, but they've never been taught how to be enough for themselves. They've confused validation with value, connection with completion. They keep chasing something outside to fix what's broken inside. But no one else can give you what you've denied yourself. Fulfillment is an internal project. It starts in solitude, in facing your wounds, in sitting with your fear. It's the quiet hours when no one's watching, and you decide to stop running. Marcus Aurelius, in the privacy of his meditations, wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there." That's the core of Stoic fulfillment. It's not found in approval, attention, or applause. It's found in alignment, in living in accordance with your values, in being someone you respect when no one else is around. When you find fulfillment within, you start to move differently. You stop accepting breadcrumbs. You want the whole loaf, or nothing at all. You stop chasing people who make you feel uncertain. You crave clarity or solitude. You stop trying to earn love. You recognize that love should never need to be earned. It should be given freely, or not at all. Internal fulfillment makes you immune to emotional bait. When someone withdraws to test your reaction, you remain grounded. When someone compliments you with an ulterior motive, you smile and move on. When someone disappears and reappears based on convenience, you no longer make space, because you're no longer operating from a deficit. You are full. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally closed off. It means becoming emotionally sovereign. You still connect, you still love, you still care, but you don't collapse when someone walks away. Because you've found what they can't offer, because you've found it in you. So here's a challenge, not for performance, but for truth. Take 1 hour today. No phone, no noise, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Sit with what rises. Listen to your breath. Let the silence speak. And in that hour, ask yourself, if no one ever told me I was enough, could I still believe it? That's the work. That's the root. Fulfillment is not a moment. It's a practice. It's reading wisdom instead of waiting on a text. It's building your body, mind, and soul instead of refreshing your notifications. It's walking outside into the stillness of the morning and knowing you are not waiting for life to begin. It's already happening inside you. So now I ask, what's one thing you do that brings you quiet joy? Something that's yours and yours alone. Write it in the comments. Remind yourself of where your real peace begins. Or leave this below. If you're committing to this path, I am full. I do not chase. I build from within. Let's keep rising. 8. Be the observer, not the pawn. There's a moment in every emotional game when you feel the hook. The pause between their message and your urge to respond. The glance they throw at someone else to provoke jealousy. The way they disappear for just long enough to make you question your worth. It's subtle, calculated. And if you aren't centered, you'll bite. That moment, that razor-thin space between what they do and what you feel, is where your power either lives or dies. And this is where the Stoic pulls away from the masses. He becomes the observer, not the pawn. In every game, someone is making moves, and someone is being moved. The pawn reacts. The observer reflects. The pawn assumes. The observer notices. The pawn is consumed by the board. The observer watches it unfold. To become the observer is to rise above the emotional field, not out of indifference, but out of awareness. Not out of indifference, but out of awareness. It is the refusal to lose your identity in someone else's confusion. Most people never realize they're playing. They think they're loving, caring, connecting, when in reality they're being pulled, prodded, and manipulated. They mistake the adrenaline of chaos for passion. They mistake emotional instability for chemistry. But the Stoic does not mistake chaos for meaning. He sees clearly. And he knows the one who sees the pattern is no longer ruled by it. Here's the trap that keeps people on the board. Personalization. They think the sudden coldness was about them. They think the silence was their fault. They think the jealousy game means they need to step it up. But the truth is, emotional manipulators don't play because of you. They play because of them. Because they need control to feel safe. Because they need to win to feel worthy. Because they don't yet know how to connect without testing, withdrawing, provoking, or provoking. So the Stoic stops taking it personally. He sees the cold message, and rather than internalize it, he asks, "What are they trying to make me feel?" He notices the pattern, and instead of reacting, he studies it. He sees the game, and instead of responding, he disengages. Observation creates space. And in that space, freedom is born. Most emotional chaos happens because we jump too quickly. We fill in gaps, we assume, we react. But if you can create just a little distance between their move and your mind, you create the possibility of peace. Let me make this practical. When someone gives you mixed signals, don't chase clarity, observe the effect it has on you. When someone tries to spark jealousy, don't compete, observe your insecurity and where it lives. When someone pushes your buttons, don't snap back, observe the story your ego wants to tell. This isn't about detachment from life. It's about detachment from delusion. You don't need to act out every feeling. You don't need to be baited into every drama. You don't need to explain yourself to every provocateur. That's how pawns live. Always responding, always dancing, always being pushed around by someone else's agenda. The observer moves differently. He speaks only when words serve truth. He withdraws not to punish, but to reflect. He remains calm, not because he feels nothing, but because he sees everything. And this doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. Imagine walking through your next challenge, your next argument, your next emotional tug-of-war with total internal composure. Imagine being aware of every subtle game being played and choosing not to respond, not out of weakness, but because your focus is on a higher game, self-mastery. That's the power of observation. You don't owe every signal a response. You don't owe every provocation your attention. You don't have to engage with every emotional breadcrumb someone throws at your feet. You don't have to keep proving your worth to someone who keeps shifting the finish line. The moment you realize you're on the board, you've already begun to rise above it. So how do you train this state? Silence, stillness, reflection. Start journaling after emotionally charged moments. Ask yourself, what was the bait? What did I feel? Why did I want to respond? Then imagine the observer's response. How would the wise version of you have handled it? Not the reactive version, not the hurt version, not the ego version, the wise version. Over time, that becomes your default. That becomes your identity. And you become immovable, no longer spinning in their storms, no longer chasing answers that only lead to more questions, no longer trying to win games you never agreed to play. Because you see now, clear as day, that not every interaction is a reflection of your worth. Sometimes it's just someone else flailing and trying to take you with them. Let them play. You are the observer now. You move with intention. You speak with weight. You choose when to engage. You know what's yours and what's theirs. And because of that, you are free. 9. Lead with purpose. When you're uncertain of your direction, you will always be pulled by someone else's. This is the forgotten truth. The person who isn't grounded in purpose becomes fertile ground for emotional manipulation. Because without purpose, you default to pleasing, to adapting, to performing, to fitting the mold that wins you love. What passes for it? But the Stoic walks a different path. He walks with purpose, and because of it, he cannot be misled. To lead with purpose means to live from the inside out. Your actions, your choices, your boundaries, they flow from your internal compass, not from external chaos. It means you have a vision for your life that is bigger than being liked, bigger than temporary affection, and bigger than fitting in. And when you carry that kind of clarity, the games fall away because you're not available to be tested. You're not distracted by provocations. You're not derailed by emotional inconsistency. You have places to go. You have a self to build. You have a future that cannot be compromised for a momentary ego boost. The people most vulnerable to manipulation are those without direction. They mistake attention for connection. They chase those who pull away. They abandon their values to hold on to someone who disrespects them. Not because they're foolish, but because they're drifting. Purpose anchors you. And anchored men and women are powerful. Ask yourself honestly, what are you building that doesn't rely on approval? What are you working toward that gives your days meaning? What values guide your yes, and even more importantly, your no? Without this framework, every emotional storm feels personal. You think their withdrawal is your fault. You think their disrespect is a reflection of your worth. You think their silence is a reason to spiral. But when you lead with purpose, you start asking different questions. You ask, is this aligned with the future I'm creating? You ask, is this dynamic helping or hindering my mission? You ask, is this worth my peace, my focus, my energy? You stop letting every connection become a crisis. You stop letting someone's inability to show up consistently become your identity. You stop giving power to anything that doesn't help you grow. And from that stance, something miraculous happens. People begin to treat you differently. You stop attracting games because people can feel that you have no time for them. You stop being tested because people sense that your boundaries are not up for debate. You stop bending because your spine is aligned with something greater than temporary intimacy. This is not about becoming unfeeling. It's about becoming unmovable in your direction. Purpose is not always grandiose. You don't need to be changing the world, but you do need a direction. Something that demands your energy, something that reflects your values, something that gives you identity outside of any relationship. For some, it's building a business. For others, it's fatherhood. For others, it's discipline of the body. A craft, a calling, a principle. Whatever it is, it must be yours. And when you show up in life as someone who leads with that purpose, the games no longer find oxygen. You are too focused, too committed, too clear to waste time interpreting mixed signals or decoding cryptic silences. Let me offer this. If you're still caught in emotional turbulence, unsure how to rise, start with vision. Define the person you're becoming. Define the future you won't compromise for crumbs. And every time someone tries to drag you into a game, ask, does this serve my mission? If the answer is no, walk away with dignity. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You lead. You move forward. Let me ask you to reflect here, deeply. What is one purpose that you've put off? Something noble, something challenging, something personal, that deserves more of your energy than these emotional distractions. Write it in the comments. Make it public. make it real. Or, if you're committing today to lead yourself, write this affirmation below. I do not follow drama. I lead with direction. Now we move to our final thoughts. Conclusion. And here we are. If you've made it this far, understand this. You've already begun the transformation. You're no longer just reacting. You're reflecting. You're seeing the patterns. You're choosing stillness over chaos. That alone places you ahead of most. We began this journey talking about games, the emotional chess matches so many of us are pulled into, the provocations, the silences, the drama disguised as love. But now, you know better. You know that true power is not reaction. It is restraint. You know that your value isn't up for negotiation. It's rooted in self-respect. You know that confidence isn't a performance. It's a practice of internal independence. And you know that silence, solitude, and sovereignty are not signs of weakness. They are the traits of a person who leads themselves first. Let others play games. You are no longer their pawn. You are no longer waiting for permission to be calm, to be strong, to be whole. You have become your own source. And in doing so, you have stepped into a kind of strength that is very rare in this world. But this work doesn't end here. The temptation to fall back into old habits will come. The urge to explain yourself, to chase, to decode their actions. It will return. And when it does, come back to this. Observe, pause, choose, lead. This is the Stoic way. And this is your way now. If you found value in this video, if something shifted in you even slightly, subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic. This channel isn't about trends or hype. It's about slow, real, permanent evolution. And you are part of that. Tap the like button if this resonated. Share this with someone you know is caught in the game, but deserves better. And leave your reflections below. I read them and they matter. Until next time, walk with clarity, stand with dignity, and rise with purpose. You are not here to play games. You are here to master yourself.